Okay, so this video is probably a pretty interesting one for a lot of you because I feel like this is kind of inspired by, the whole Flashy Flash versus, Garou versus Platinum S situation. And I feel like to implement this into like my own little versus battle, well, three-way versus battle would be pretty interesting. And as you guys can tell by the title of this video, we're going to be talking about Blast versus Awakened Garou versus Boros. Now, we're obviously going to be using the Awakened Garou from the webcomic since the manga version hasn't, fully awakened Garou just yet, but I'm sure that's going to happen fairly soon. So, we don't have to wait too long, I'm guessing. But of course, before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because if you can't tell by one look at my channel, I post a lot of One Punch Man content, arguably too much for my own good. But of course, if you like that stuff, then of course make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be a lot more of that in the future. But of course, let's just get into the video, because this again is a pretty interesting versus battle. Now, starting off with, I guess, the easiest person to kind of gauge, which is Boros. Now, Boros, in my opinion, is always going to be an above dragon. Like, he's like the figurehead of above dragons through and through. And in terms of, I guess, my percentages or how strong I think he is in the above dragon category, as I do normally on my channel, I would probably say he's probably around like a 70+% above dragon, depending on which form he's currently in. So probably like in his armored form, he's probably like maybe 5 to 10%. In his released Boros form is a bit higher, well, a lot higher than the armored form, which would probably be like a 30, 40, maybe even 50% above dragon. And of course, in his meteoric Boros burst form, we know that he's probably around like a 80%, 90% above dragon. So pretty much fringe god at that point. Boros is a complete monster once he gets to his meteoric Boros form. So of course, I feel like in terms of, I guess, how he scales in this fight compared to people like Blast, I guess Blast at the moment is pretty hard to gauge since we don't have a lot of abilities or powers from him. But we have had a few feats shown from Blast, and we've had many statements about Blast, what he can do, etc, etc. So of course, I'm just going to go through some of them off the top of my head. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure it's been stated in the series once that Blast is able to take on all of the S-class heroes at once and win, which in itself, in my opinion, is a straight up god level feat. Because, if you can take on Tatsumaki, if you can take on Flashy Flash, if you can take on Atomic Samurai, if you can take on, all of these crazy guys, Drive Knight, Metal Knight, all at once and still win, then you are pretty much like, at the very least, probably like the level of meteoric Boros burst, well, around that form or around that level of strength. So at the very least, Blast is probably like a 90% above dragon, and at the most he's straight up like mid god, maybe like 20% god level. So Blast is pretty strong in his own right. And of course, we've seen that in the current arc, or in the Monster Association, we see that he's actually able to pretty much defeat Flashy Flash by fear, which is one of the most impressive feats in this series to this day. Because if you guys don't know, Flashy Flash is like one of the strongest characters in the series. He's like an above dragon, 5 to 10% as well. He showed many different feats and many impressive feats in the manga, especially in the Monster Association arc. So the fact that Blast can defeat someone like that by literally just scaring him is pretty impressive, because even Garou couldn't do that to Flashy Flash. I mean, Flashy Flash did face off against Garou in the webcomic and in the manga, but Flashy Flash did exchange blows. He still tried to fight Garou because he thought he had a chance. But Blast, on the other hand, he just straight up couldn't win because he saw that he was not strong enough. Now, of course, we know that Blast also has some, I guess, time warping or spatial based abilities, which could be pretty broken, especially since we know that, I guess, in terms of, I guess, that spatial, I guess, type of abilities in general in anime and manga can be pretty broken and can have a lot of hacks and stuff. So, you know, Blast already has that up his sleeve. We know that Blast is the strongest S-class hero, and he's currently on like a top secret mission to, I guess, kind of defeat God with his, I guess, Guardians of the Galaxy that he has with him, you know, and to defeat God's disciples, etc, etc. So we know that Blast is pretty freaking strong in his own, you know, but Blast is pretty strong in his own right as well. Now, in terms of Awakened Garou, Awakened Garou is, again, pretty strong as well. He's definitely one of the strongest characters in the series. We know that in terms of how strong he is in threat level, in his Awakened form, I would say he's, you know, similar to Meteoric Boros as well. He's probably like a 70% above Dragon, maybe 80%. He's pretty strong depending on the form we're using of Awakened Garou, because after doing some rereading, I know that Garou actually has like 3 forms in his Awakened form, which I guess is pretty interesting, to be honest, because I'm not too sure how different in strength these 3 forms are, but I'm guessing they're probably around like a somewhere in between like a 60 to 90% above Dragon, I guess, level of strength, you could say. But Garou, of course, he's able to use his, you know, Monster Calamity Godslayer Fist. He's able to use Godslayer Ascending Attack, Godslayer Instant Attack. He has augmented strength, speed, reflexes, durability, all that stuff. You know, Garou is able to survive many of Saitama's serious moves. You know, obviously probably not as serious as the serious punch that Boros had to, I guess, try to counter with his collapsing star roaring cannon, but he's able to, you know, survive things like Saitama's serious table flips, or even Saitama's consecutive normal punches, which Boros also was able to survive. He's also able to survive things like his serious headbutt. So Garou, of course, has some crazy feats up his sleeve as well. So all these 3, you know, immensely strong characters have many feats and statements to back up their strength, and they're probably not all around the same strength, but I would say especially Boros and Garou are around the same strength. But Blast, on the other hand, is on a completely different level. So if I was to kind of, I guess how this fight would go, I'm assuming that Boros and Garou might kind of team up. Well, this is kind of against both of their personalities, because both of them are pretty prideful. Especially Garou doesn't like to team up because, you know, even in his fight against Platinum S and Flashy Flash, he refused Platinum S's, you know, proposal to work together to take down Flashy. So I'm guessing that Boros versus Garou might happen first, and Blast might also come in there and maybe do a few hits in. And of course, I feel like between Boros and Garou, from what we've seen so far, I'm guessing Boros would probably win depending on the circumstances, because of course, if Blast decides to attack Garou as well as Boros attacking Garou, then Garou has no chance. But if Boros gets attacked by both Awakened Garou and Blast, then I'm guessing that, you know, Boros would lose and Boros would be the first to get out. But let's just assume that Blast doesn't really intervene in this fight, and we see that Boros versus Garou, you know, it goes down, and we see that I'm guessing that Boros will be smart and will realize that Garou is more of a hand-to-hand combatant, and maybe Boros might have, you know, already, you know, been dealt some damage by Garou's, you know, Godslayer Fist, and he realizes that he's gonna have to use like some projectile energy based type of attacks. And we see that obviously Boros gets some attacks through, and I'm guessing that Awakened Garou is the first to get out of this fight. Now, some of you, I guess, Garou enthusiasts, sorry, might not like this, but, you know, I just feel like Boros right now is just a little bit stronger than Awakened Garou in the webcomic. Maybe when we get to the manga, we might see Awakened Garou catch up to Boros and completely, maybe even eclipse Boros in strength. Who knows? But now, onto Blast versus Boros. Now, Boros has already been dealt some damage. Blast may have also had some damage dealt in there due to collateral damage, and maybe earlier in the fight he might have exchanged blows with Boros and Garou at the same time as well. So we might see, let's just assume that they're both probably around the same stamina, or they have around the same level of injuries put onto them. So let's just try to make it as fair as possible. So I guess Blast comes in and tries to hit Boros, but we see that of course Boros is pretty fast and he's able to, I guess, dodge this, and they go back and forth for quite a while. And Boros realizes that Blast is stronger than him, so he attempts to use the collapsing star roaring cannon to completely finish off the fight. But we see that of course Blast is able to use his spatial abilities, and, you know, Blast is completely able to dodge this attack and even absorb the attack and take it to a different dimension, because I'm assuming this is probably what Blast could do, because we see that he's able to transport Saitama, Flashy Flash and Monaco to a completely different location just from, you know, using his spatial abilities. So I'm guessing he could also use that with, you know, Boros' collapsing star ring cannon, and we see that Boros of course is on his last legs, and Blast is able to just finish him off, you know, due to the fact that Boros is out of strength, and I guess Blast is the victor of this fight. Now tell me what you guys think, because personally I feel like this is probably how the fight would go down. I tried my best to kind of make this as realistic as possible, but apart from that, that's all I have to say for this video. Blast is the winner of this three-way fight, and Garou does come in last, and Boros is second, and I guess Blast is first. But of course, if you like the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and apart from that, I'll see you in my next video.